call. So tonight we have an amazing night for you. We have a very special guest. We have our founder, Tyler Norton, on tonight. So for those of you who don't know him, his father, Vertus Norton, was the original founder and brought Tyler in. And Tyler has taken over, and he is an amazing trainer, an amazing strategist, and is just taking this company by storm. We're very, very fortunate to have someone of this integrity, of this wisdom to lead our company. And it's one of the reasons that so many of us are so dedicated to this company and to the vision that Tyler and his father Vertus had for what we have our hands on. And that's to make Asea a global company and to share this gift all around the world. Our company motto is to better people's lives and be a force for good in the world. And nobody is a better example of that than Tyler Norton. So Tyler, if you're on, I'd love for you to pop on. Looks like you're named Jim tonight, and just say hi to everybody and kind of give us the background story. Tell us about when you first came into contact when your dad, you've got such a great story about the jewelry cleaner, and I don't want to give anything away, and just what you went through, because a lot of people, including all of us on here, when we first found out about this product made from salt and water, we were a little skeptical, and I know you went through a lot of that yourself. So take it away, Tyler. Thank you for coming on tonight, being our special.
Oh, it's great to be here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Hear you great.
Great. I just want to make sure you can hear me. Well, first off, it's just a delight to be with you tonight. I'm so flattered you'd invite me. Dr. Maureen, thank you so much. Lee, thanks so much for hosting tonight. And, this is a remarkable time to be exposed to Asea. I don't know how many of you tonight are on the call for the first time that might be hearing about Asea for the first time. If you are, I'm just thrilled to be able to share a few insights for you. Dr. Maureen, what I'll do is just maybe give a little background on how this all started. And I committed with Jim just to kind of do some Q&A tonight. So I'm here to hit anything you guys want to. But I will tell you guys this, that it's been now 10 plus years since we launched the company. And the way I think about it, actually in earnest, it's been maybe closer to 12 years. In as much as my dad and I were asked to do a strategy consulting engagement for a biotech company over 13 years ago, around that time. And we met a company that had a technology. They were developing two technologies, and one of them was made with salt and water and through a patented process. And we just thought, well, that's crazy. What can that possibly be? And my dad continued to work with these folks in this biotech company and was asked to sit on the board of directors for them, and became really convinced that there was something significant about this technology. Now, I should say at the time that they were a true biotech developing for the pharmaceutical space. But my dad was asked to sit on the board and realized they were in need of some funding. And they were out of money, and he said, I'm happy to help you not raise some money, but actually, if you would like to sell this technology, I'll help to do it. And Dad ended up buying the technology, the patents, and all of the research, which was significant at the time, and began a process. I have to tell you guys that everyone says Vertus wasn't intending maybe to take this and just sell it. That's not true. My dad had every intention to say, well, maybe someone wants to buy this. It wasn't until he started to realize what it was and how it was affecting people that he started to consider, is there another way that we can take this product to the world than through that particular channel? And so what originally started out as, hey, let's buy this technology and this research and let's take it and flip it to a pharmaceutical company, started to turn into something different. And it was because my dad became convinced that there was a set of properties in these technologies that were really additive to people. And let me just say this, if you know anything at all about that space, when you have a product that's being developed for the pharmaceutical space, you have to make an indication on that. And that indication basically is like one key on a piano. And that's the only key that you can play. And as Dad started to realize that this was like turning into chords, and he would share this product with people, And he was having phenomenal feedback from people across a broad range of things. It became really clear that to indicate this in a single key on the piano would be to limit the 88 key piano entirely of what this product can do. And it's a product that plays across all of those keys because we know now it plays to cellular health, self-signaling, and in particular, redox signaling. So now, none of that was something I knew at the time. And if you were hanging around with us on Sunday dinners at my home, you would have laughed a little bit because we were making fun of my dad. We were like, Dad, what are you doing with this? This is crazy. My dad was the head of strategy at Kraft Foods, a $36 billion company, retired to Park City, Utah, right around the time of the '02 Olympics, by the way. That was a neat time to be up there. And so we had the Winter Olympics up there. My dad then designs the house of his dreams, like a 9-car garage, this monster home in Park City. This is where I want to be. And we thought, okay, Dad's hanging up the cleats. He's done, and he's going to retire. And it was about that time he got asked to go do consulting for another biotech company, and he just kept going and going. But if you can imagine a 69-year-old man setting out to start a business in network marketing, by the way, selling a product that's a derivative of salt and water, right? We live in Salt Lake City. And so we were having fun with Dad. I'm like, what are you doing? You don't need this economically. And certainly when he told me he was going direct sales, I was like, Dad, are you out of your mind? And of course, my mom was just happy to have Dad do anything that would get him out of the house because, after all his years working, he was driving her mad, coming home and trying to re-engineer, home economics and how things happen at home. And she's like, time out, you're not head of strategy here, so out. So it was fun to watch my dad go back to work and deploy his mind. And I jokingly say that we joked with him about it. We did. But I will say this, my dad's one of those people that may be wrong, but he's never in doubt. And that's the worst kind of dad to have when you're a teenager, because even when he's wrong, he's never in doubt. But I will say this, I remember distinctly saying to myself, the book of my father's life is an incredible book. And the last chapter is going to be, we'll see how this chapter goes. The last chapter of my dad's book, right, which may have yet to be written, but the most recent chapter for the last 10 years has been the most fantastic. For him to start, he's now 81 years old, if you can imagine this. And he absolutely has become, he's told me the last 10 years have been the best 10 years of his life. And this product and these technologies are now sold in 33 countries around the world. And at the time, we had absolutely no idea what was happening. I actually like to think of my dad as prescient. I mean, he was ahead, he was in front of it in terms of where things were going. And in some ways still is today after 10 years. So Maureen, I take my hat off to my dad for how this all came together. He bumped into a technology in the biotech space, believed it had plenty of keys on the piano it could play, believed the world deserved it, and made a commitment to share it to the world with indirect sales and network marketing. And you would have never believed it, and none of us would have. I should say at the time, I'm a chief distribution officer of a 100-year-old financial institution with a 17-year career in financial services. I had absolutely no interest in rebooting that career. And yet here we are with tens and tens and tens of thousands of people around the world, dear friends in 33 countries that are sharing this great mission and this incredible technology. And I'm just, it's overwhelming to us. It's really quite amazing. Maureen, is there something specific I can hit for you?
I would love for you to kind of talk about going from fear and doubt to hope.
Yeah. So I like to meet people, if you're on the call for the first time, who are actually kind of saying, I'm not sure I buy this and I'm in doubt. And Maureen knows that when this started, I really didn't buy into it until I had a very close neighbor friend that was really not in a good spot and was dealing with a very serious challenge. And I called my dad and I said, Dad, do you think this could be of some help to him? And he said, of course it could. And I was like, come on, how do you know that, right? How is that possible? And he went on to say to me, Tyler, I'm convinced that this can help anybody. And so he got me some of the product and I took it to this neighbor friend who was dealing with this challenge. And I was so frightened to share it at the time that there was no Asea, there was no bottle, there were no studies. It was just the research Dad had. And I was scared to death to share this with my neighbor, absolutely frightened to death. I didn't know if it would help. I didn't know if it would combine negatively with what he might already have been doing. I just had no concept. And so, Dr. Maureen, I was so concerned that I decided I would call the leader of my church, my local congregation, and see if I could anonymously give him this product to then take to my neighbor so that I could remain like kind of secondhand from this whole thing, which oddly enough, I did. Now, there are some heroes to me that are unsung heroes in this story for me personally, one of which is the church leader, a guy named Craig Bennett. Craig was willing to take this. And if you can imagine, I go to his door. I'm like, I need you to take this to my neighbor, Jason. And he's like, well, what is it? And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, what am I supposed to say to him? And I said, you can say whatever you want. Tell him to drink a certain amount of this every day. It had no label. It's in a blue 5-gallon jug, like a camping jug. And I'm scared to death. And I said, the one rule is you can't tell him where you got it. And he's saying, well, wait a minute, I'm supposed to take this over to Jason's house, tell him, I don't know where I got it. I don't know what it is. And you're supposed to drink it. And I said, exactly. And that's how scared I was. And I was in fear and doubt, period. Now, if you agree with me that fear and doubt are kissing cousins, they were going back and forth, fear and doubt. Now, Craig Bennett, the church leader, takes the product to Jason. Miracle one, by the way, for me. First evidence of network marketing, by the way. Jason gets a product that, let's be honest, tastes a little like pool water and is kind of crazy in a blue jug. Miracle number two, would you drink it? My answer is a quick no. Like, I don't need to think about that. Some foreign product in a blue camping jug that doesn't quite taste like something normal. And you know what was cool was he trusted Craig, another principle of network marketing. He trusted Craig so much that he was like, well, if you tell me to do it, even though Craig couldn't tell him the derivative source of it and wouldn't divulge it, right, based on me telling him I would strangle him. So you've got this really unique triangulation happening, which for me was like portending network marketing. This is like an absolute foreshadowing, a literary foreshadowing of network marketing. So I love meeting people that are real about this and are scratching their head. Actually, it's my favorite person to talk to. I'm not a top spinner. I don't know how to make this into something it's not. And I would say this, if it is just salt and water, how many of you want to try to start a company and get it to 33 countries inside of 10 years and hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue just selling salt water? Well, the punchline is it's not. Now, I didn't know that, and I was super scared about that. So I'm really heavily in fear and doubt. Maybe some of you would say on the You Are Here map, that's where I am. I get it. So what happens is, I'll fast forward 3 or 4 weeks or months. I don't remember the exact amount of time, but sure enough, miracle number two, on the trust and confidence that Jason has in Craig, network marketing principle, Craig says, drink this, and he does. Now, Craig calls me back and says, hey, you need to be sitting down for what I need to talk to you about. And I said, good or bad news? He said, well, presumably good. I just got off the phone with Jason. And he says, Jason is doing better. He's doing well. And he's had some interaction with the professionals that have been helping him with this challenge, and they're perplexed. Now, of course, I'm waiting, right? I'm waiting. Did he drink the stuff? Like, what are you going to tell me he actually drank the stuff? Because we didn't have a name for it. It was the stuff. I called it moonshine. I called it all these different things. I called it pool water, but it's the stuff, right? And Craig calls me, he goes, well, that's why I'm calling. He wants to know if he can have more. He's just about out of it. And he's convinced that whatever it is helping him. And in this moment, Jim, if you can imagine, in this very moment, I got a real problem because I have to actually signal to my father, the omniscient Wizard of Oz, that he's right. Like, I've got to go back to him and say, Dad, this is helping, which for the fourth of 4 kids in a family is like, I'd rather have a tooth pulled out without any kind of pain killing, And so I didn't want to call Dad, Maureen. I wanted to call Jason. So now I pick up the phone. I call Jason. I go, Jason, this is your neighbor, Ty. I just got off the phone with Craig, the church leader, and he's telling me that you're doing better. And I need to hear this. Like, what's going on? And he proceeds to tell me what I've now heard into the thousands of times, but this is time number one. And he begins to tell me, well, this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening. And they're asking me these questions, and they can't figure this out. So you can imagine that if I'm hovering over fear and doubt, like that's the "you are here" map for me. Like when people say, I am there, I am the epitome of fear and doubt. But in this instance, in this moment, I pivot for brief moments, not for long moments, brief moments into this notion of hope. So from fear, doubt to hope, because I'm saying to myself, well, what if? Now, if you're anything like me, I didn't get to hope, much less downstream to belief, which comes after the hope. I stayed between doubt and hope for a long time. It was like a ping pong match. I'll tell you what it sounded like in my head. He's talking and I go, dude, your mind is a pharmacy. Like you can tell yourself to do whatever you want. He goes, well, that's fair, but I don't even know what's in the camping jug. Like, why would I cook something up in my head? Then he goes, this is what happened. I haven't changed anything else. I've been on the exact same track. And I've been all over the world getting looked at. And he's sitting there saying, so, and then I go, wow, what if? Which is a killer question, by the way. I'm like, what if? What if? And then I'd go, come on, give me a break. Something else is at play here. So I started playing ping pong. And I'd go to hope for a minute on the what if, and then I'd swing back to, come on, your mind is a pharmacy. This is impossible. Now let's talk about just this for a minute. I like to think about the elegance and the counterintuitive nature of some of the greatest health science breakthroughs of our several lifetimes. The counterintuitive and elegant simplicity of, like, let's say we're going to start a network marketing company almost 100 years ago, and we're going to sell mold. We're going to sell mold. And we're going to sell mold because we have this belief set that the most counterintuitive thing in the world is actually what's needed by the body. By the way, I could say the same of a comatose virus in the form of a vaccine. That's counterintuitive, isn't it? What is a vaccine? It's the bad guy in a coma being put into your body to awaken you. That's kind of interesting. So let's be honest with each other. How many of the elegant, most beautiful health science breakthroughs of not just our lifetime, let's say 5 lifetimes, let's go back. How many of them are both counterintuitive, simple, and elegant? So in the early days, I'm saying, well, something as simple as, for example, what's in an IV? Something that simple. It's saline. It's salt water, you know. What's 70% of your body weight? It's salt water. What is the concept of metabolism? It's chemical reactions in the body. And I'm starting to go, and that's the what if moment, right? Then you got someone who's now a human being, kids, wife, beautiful person, who's now telling me, I mean, this is not easy to dismiss. And he says, this has had an impact on me. This is doing something to me. And it took me a while, obviously, to accept the fact that I was going to call Virtus, my beloved father, who I love more than anyone on this planet. And I was going to say, Dad, this is for real. Of course, he relishes in the moment to tell me, I told you so, which he, to this day, like I tell him we've had record sales weeks, and he goes, if I was still working, we would have done it faster. That's what my dad says to me. So we laugh all the time about it. I just talked to him 30 minutes ago. But guys, I want to tell you something. Like, I don't blame any person on this planet that's exposed to this, that's in fear, doubt, or hope, or even just fear and doubt. I'll meet you wherever you are. I don't care where you are. But I will tell you that you can't grow this to 33 countries and approaching $200 million in revenue, a top 44, soon to be probably under 40 in the world network marketing company, if there's no substance to this here. And so I had to go through my own journey of fear and doubt. And then I triangulated between doubt and hope and experience. doubt, hope, experience, doubt, hope, experience. It was like a triangle that just kept going. So I would go to hope because I'd hear of an experience someone had. I'd go out to speak for my dad at a meeting somewhere, and 3 people would line up at the end of the meeting and say, please, can you kick a message back to your dad? One of those was in Kentucky. And this gentleman comes up, stately looking man. I remember a well-groomed white beard, and socioeconomically, I could tell like he was making good money. Everything about his life looked great. And his wife puts her hand on the small of his back as his lip is quivering. I can see his lip is quivering. And he's looking at me like, I'm not sure I can do this. And his wife calmingly reassures him and says, you need to tell him. So I want you to imagine this. This is real. I'm not cooking this up. So I'm uncomfortable because I can see this gentleman is getting emotional to the point of being uncomfortable himself in front of me. I've never met him before. He says, you should know that I'm a financial advisor. And I said, oh, that's the world I've come from. He says, I know. He begins to tell me, I have this much in assets under management. I have this much of a clientele. And I can immediately back engineer into his income. I'm like, okay, this guy does very well. He then proceeds to tell me that he is, in fact, he shouldn't be working, is the way he put it. I shouldn't be working right now. I shouldn't be able to meet with a client at a restaurant based on a set of challenges. And I will tell you, as you've noticed already, I don't say the challenges these people have. I don't even go there, and I highly recommend you don't either. Let me just say this, it's a challenge. It was a real challenge. And so he's sitting there and he begins to tell me in great detail, by the way, much more detail than I'm able to divulge with you. And it was so emotional for me that I held myself together. And I remember excusing myself after the visit and going through a back door kind of from a ballroom in the hotel. And I found a hall that was almost like a service or utility hall. And I had to compose myself for a minute because of how real it was. And it was almost too much for me. I was just like, this is too much. So you take my neighbor, who I went so far as, and I mentioned this at the webvention, like I found a video cassette. In fact, some of them I still have here, like these old cassettes I've been transferring. These are videotapes. And I found this old cassette of my neighbor. I made him sit in my front room and tell me what happened because I was incredulous. And by the way, this tells you my memory. I didn't remember my dad was there, but my dad was with me. And I can hear my dad in the background because he's like, now this is after I told dad he's had an experience. Now dad's with me at the house in my front room with my neighbor and his wife. And there's no economic incentive for this guy to be telling me anything. There's nothing. There's no company. There's no Asea Blue. There's no bottle. There's nothing. And this is 2007. This is way before, I mean, this is early stage of working on the product, early stage. And so for me to have found that video and go back and watch it, guys, I love somebody who doubts this. You should doubt this. But would you have doubted mold? Yeah. Would you doubt the notion of injecting a comatose virus into your body in the name of awakening your immune response? Would that sound normal? You would have doubted that too. So maybe you should suspend your fear and doubt and play on some hope. And the way you play the hope and experience back and forth until you move to a place of belief. See, I'm not on trial. And this company's not on trial. And my product set's not on trial. You may say it is. That's cool with me. But I'm not on trial. And that's because I now have thousands of real world experiences. Right behind me in this cabinet right here, I have a binder. In fact, you want me to get it? I'm going to get it for you. I've never done this before. Hang on a minute.
Are you going to send it to us?
I'm not sending the binder.
Show it to us. Yeah. How awesome.
Here's the binder. This binder, probably can't see it very well, has a list of all of the challenges. And this is classic Burtis Norton, by the way. It has a series of tabs. And if I go to tab 1, you will see a letter. This is a letter. Certain things blacked out for reasons. This is 2011. Here's another story. sent to my dad, 2013. And all of these letters, here's one, Dear Asea family, January 14th, 2013. Here's a handwritten one.
Wow.
Okay. Okay, how about I'll read you the first couple lines of this. I haven't read this for years. Dear Virtus, I didn't do a very good job of introducing myself yesterday. Even now, as I write this, it's difficult for me to hold back tears. My name is Christy. I became an associate in December of 2012. I grew up here in Utah. I've lived in Spokane for 9 years. I'm a blessed single mother. And she goes through and tells a multiple chronic challenges that she's had. And this is a 2-page note. And thanking my dad, thank you for reading this and trying to warm up my hand when we shook hands. I pray the most choice blessings to you, and then her name. And by the way, guys, this is just tab 1. I can keep going. Here's Ella's story, our 7-year-old daughter at the top of the page. So here's the question, right? And there's Ella's signature, a 7-year-old little girl telling her story to my dad. Now, that's just tab 1. Tab 1 correlates on the table of contents to a certain element of challenge. Are you with me? Are you tracking with me on this? Let's go to 2, tab 2. Here's the whole section. These are all letters in tab 2. All of them, pictures, letters, before, after, stories of people's lives. So here's why I'm not trying to be arrogant with you when I say that I'm not on trial. I'm not in any way suggesting you shouldn't put me on trial, or this company, or these products, or this technology. I welcome it. But I will tell you that you're going to go on a journey, and what's going to happen is this is real stuff. I mean, page after page after page of real stuff and real people. And this is a binder that only has a fraction of what my dad has in his home. Now, why would I say that, Maureen? It's because my journey from fear, doubt, pinging back and forth from hope and doubt, then sweeps through experience. And this is experience, right? These are real families, real people, real children, real moms and dads, real grandparents, like real stuff. So at what point do you have enough experiences across enough broad ranges, or let's call it keys on the piano, enough of these, literally, to say to yourself, okay, this is worthy of my attention? And in my opinion, that's why I left a 17-year career as a senior vice president and chief distribution officer of a $4 billion company. Now, if you want to know one more thing, and Maureen, I'm going to pause in a minute so you can breathe and I can breathe and you can ask me another question. Let me just put it this way. I've been in the car sometimes when I'll hit a traffic jam, and so bad sometimes that you know something is significant has happened ahead of you. And then you'll hear something in the sky and you'll look up and you'll see a helicopter flying overhead, and it's a life flight copter, and and in that moment, at least for me, this is me, I say to myself, man, somebody's in trouble. Somebody's in trouble. And there have been times when I've said a prayer in my heart the way I pray, and I've just said somebody's in trouble. I've never once said, man, that life flight's going to cost a lot of money. I've never once done any economic math in the moment when life is at risk. Why is that? Almost any other scenario you see a huge wedding somewhere, right? Huge wedding. You look at the flowers, and you're like, that's costing a lot of money to somebody. But when someone's life is in question or at peril, the economics die. And the only thing we feel as people is that life deserves life in that moment, and we must do anything we can. So from my perspective, I'm selling insurance and investments. And oddly enough, the insurance side of my business, which I experienced, very noble, by the way. I delivered $1 million check to a 35-year-old woman who lost her husband in a plane crash. But oddly enough for me, someone had to die for the significance of my work to find its fullest expression. So when I started seeing this stuff, I'm like, what if you give your best effort to something that doesn't find its truest expression at the point of someone's passing, i.e. an insurance product? What if you were to give your life to something where Ella's 7-year-old Ella's story becomes that moment? And I can only tell you that's why I left the industry I was in, Dr. Maureen, and I came into this industry, and I'm not on trial, and I'm not asking anybody's opinion about this. I don't read the editorial page. I don't need an opinion on this. I got it right here. Now, if you don't have that kind of conviction, do I blame that? Not at all. Are you kidding me? Not at all. Not any more than I would say, hey, what if we start a company injecting comatose viruses into people's bodies? You'd be like, are you out of your mind? Well, if you got a flu shot this year, which is probably something of some interest to a few people around the world, that's what you got. You got a comatose virus introduced into your body to awaken your body's own ability to respond. Now, what if we can do something in the body that is promoting a response? What if we can actually signal cellular communication and cellular hard control alt delete moments when they lose their identity, when they lose their function? What would happen? What could happen? So, boy, I sure appreciate any of you on this call that might be struggling with what this is all about. Now we've expanded from that first product. We have a gel product that's remarkable. It does the exact same things from the outside in. So you can approach this from the inside out and the outside in. And then we've coupled that and supplemented that with nutritional products, because what we're learning is you can't say they're the same. They're not. Nutrition is fundamentally necessary such that when a cell is signaled properly, it has the building blocks necessary to respond. Now, when you move through your own continuum of fear, doubt, hope starts to play with experience, and experience starts to mount. And let me say something about experience. Please don't make the mistake of suggesting you shared it with one person or even yourself and it didn't do you any good. If you know anything about, for example, Facebook advertising, it would be akin to me putting a Facebook ad together and then saying, I ran an ad for a day and it didn't work. You need to be true to this long enough to find the real reason why you've been even involved in this. It's not about you. Sorry. I wish it was. It's not. And if you stick it out long enough, it will pay you handsomely and it will reward you handsomely, but it's still not about you any more than it's about my dad or me. It's not. It's about Jason or Ella. And when you get that spirit, that ethos of saying this has more to do with somebody else than me, it will begin to reward you dimensionally. It will reward you dimensionally. It'll come back to you in a way that you can't imagine. So I've gone from fear, doubt, hope, experience to belief, and belief has now given way to conviction. And conviction has moved its way to complete action. And that's the framework, Dr. Maureen. I hope that helps a little bit. It was a bit of a soliloquy, but that's how it went.
No, I love it. That was perfect. And two things come to mind. One is that we need to honor people for where they are. You know, we forget that in the beginning, we were all a little bit cynical and skeptical as well until our belief got greater. And also, once you do have the belief and the experiences, I feel like we have a responsibility to share this with other people. Mm-hmm. Because I've often heard you say that if we don't open up our mouths, if we don't share it with others, somebody might suffer. And that's so incredibly true. Now, Jim wants to ask a question. Let's see if we can hear him. Jim, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. I love your possibilities versus probability talk. I'm an ex-stockbroker, you know that. I also delivered $1 million checkbook to a dear friend from church. Tyler, I believe God chose you and your dad to bring this to the people. I really do. Because if you think about the previous company that had this technology, and I did a lot of IPOs, I did a lot of individual stock business, the probability with what your father knew about that technology before, there was no chance that he was going to be able to stabilize it. None. And if he would have gone looking for money to raise money to buy it, there's no way anybody would put money up on this. What was it in your dad? I know. I mean, he had to have the hand of God on him to be able to go, the probability is 0, but there's a possibility. And as I say that, I get the chills. And I do want to ask you towards the end, when this is a made for TV movie, who's going to play you?
Well, that's scary. I don't know yet. And, I got to be honest, you might not like my answer on some of this. I don't want it to be a made for TV movie. I don't want to draw attention to it the wrong way. There are people that don't want this to win. And I think we all need to be good stewards of it, by the way, because if we're out, and even I tonight, I'm trying to be a little bit careful here of saying these are the things we've seen, because I don't want to get to a spot where someone says, well, we're making claims and things we shouldn't. So please be careful, guys, as you share this. Let's talk about possibilities and probabilities for a minute. That shift, if all we're playing is the odds, the greatest moments in human history would never have happened if we just played odds all the time. You can think, I believe the majority of us on the call tonight are American. I mean, should America's revolution have been what it was? Think of the moments when so much was at stake that if that person that was leading the charge had allowed probabilities to inform our actions alone, without belief that there are higher powers or higher purposes and principles that can be brought to bear, I honestly think the greatest moments in human history would never have happened. So if you can subscribe to that, if you can give that just a thought for a minute, what if we turn that into a micro principle for just your life? Not the world, not a nation, not a company or a movement like Asea. I'm talking about if I pull up the panelist list and I just start reading names and I say, what if the greatest moments of your life have yet to be explored, have yet to be really determined because maybe you're doing too much math? Maybe you traded the maybe for the sure. You went in and said, I'm going to trade that maybe for the sure thing because I don't have much of an option now. And then over time, you find yourself saying, you know what, I traded. Now, let me put it in even more detailed context. What if a 69-year-old man who's been a senior, who, by the way, retired at 57 to Park City, built a monster home, like life is great. What if he plays the probability game? What if he, because by the way, everybody, myself included, was trying to invite him back to the probability game. I'm like, Dad, 69 years old, worst economy since the Great Depression, Salt Lake City, that doesn't help you. Network marketing, that puts you against the power curve. I start sounding, I'm like, do the math, do the probabilities. Why not just go play around at golf every week, swim some laps at a pool. I'll come up Friday nights, we'll watch a ball game, cook a steak, hang out. That's a pretty good gig. You got to be careful with allowing the probabilities of life to over-inform and overshape your life. If you don't allow possibility thinking to find its expression, if you don't give that a chance to have voice, to go from black and white to color in your life and to start looking like something doable, if you're not willing to go there because maybe life's dealt you too many tough hands, maybe too many, that the hand of cards life's given you are just too tough. Okay. I will tell you that if I could inspire anything in any person, regardless of their association with Asea, I'm not talking about Asea right now. I'm talking about the stuff of life. And the stuff of life says, I'm done doing the math. I'm done doing the quantitative analysis that says the probabilities of this working are low. What if you throw that stuff out? By the way, when you do that, you know what'll happen? You'll allow yourself to entertain your own possibilities personally, and you'll start to diminish and discount the voices in your head that you've given way too much stage time. Whether that was a 5th grade math teacher who said you weren't really good at math and you allowed that paint to dry on you. And we've all got them. I can make my list of, a coach that said this in a vulnerable moment that I took too much to the heart. And then somehow, some way, that hits the hard drive and it stays there way too long. So if I honor my dad, gosh, just tonight, here's my dad, 81 years old, calling me, and he's like, I want to build a big barn for family reunions, he says. I go, okay, Dad, let's talk about it. I've got this land and this and that. And he's 81 years old and his mind is burning up on future generations gathering and building relationships. It's like, okay, you got it. I please don't misinterpret this as some sort of hyped up top spin. I'm telling you, if you never do anything with Asea, if you're on this call trying this dress on and it doesn't fit or you don't like the color, we're tipping hats and we're wishing you well, but take this away. Don't traffic in the probability thinking that says it's not probable, so I'm not going to try. Don't. Whether it's Asea, whether it's your current track you're on in your career. Another way to say this, when a snowstorm hits and you can't see the lines on the parking lot, and it's 7 a.m. and you're getting to work, and you're the first car in the lot, and you park exactly perpendicular to the lines, like you don't know where the lines are, nobody's cleaned off the snow from the parking lot, so you do your best and you pull in. Where does everyone else park for the rest of the day? They park in the exact same disposition and angle that you started. Is that bad? No, but it's a message about the way our minds work. And I think it's a good thing to ponder and say, okay, so what does that really tell us? We tend to take cues from those around us on the band of possibility or what makes sense, and we tend to kind of settle into patterns. I used to recruit guys and say, I can tell you the earliest person to the office, and then I can add 5 to 15 minutes to either side of the time, prior to or after, and that's when most people show up. They tend to wait till somebody establishes the norm, and then they kind of volley around that. Well, who's to say that one day a week you can't get up early and outthink somebody and be here earlier? One day. I really would hope you guys would give some thought to, are you scratching the itch in the middle of your back of your own potential? Because if you're not, you belong here. And I'm not saying I'm the only place where that can happen, but I will tell you that I love to raise the flag of possibility thinking. Some people call that dreamers. That's a little too out there for me. I just want to say, is it possible? And the people who break the boundaries of what they never thought was possible in their own life, by the way, that could be, I need to make 500 more bucks a week. I'm not talking about like, it doesn't have to be ridiculously out there. It can be just start now with an emotionally doable thing and consider that it's possible. And then let the inspiration of others around you proving that invite you to leave the math behind a little bit and just lean into it.
Wow.
Awesome. Tyler, I'm going to lower this volume here. So we're so thankful you took a leap of faith and your father did in starting this. So I was thinking about the notebook.
And if you can hear me, it's a little digital, your voice. Are you hearing that, Maureen?
Yeah, it's very staticky, Ann.
So I don't know what you did right before. Maybe turn the volume down a little bit or whatever, but you were actually pretty clear.
Okay.
It's just all of a sudden turned kind of digital on us. Did you turn that volume down or something right before you asked the question, Ann?
Hear me at all? No.
I can make out what you're saying, Ann. Go ahead. I'll repeat the question for you.
Tell the story about the treasure chest, because if we could fill it up right now, 5 years of stories, there'd be so many lives, our life that was changed because of you on the health and on the finances. So thankful.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. So let me make sure, give me a thumbs up if this was the question, was to tell the story of the treasure chest and what that's all about. Let me start with a really specific story that might help. When there was a boy in Idaho, as I recall, who told his mother after several days on Asea, having dealt with a real serious challenge most of his life as a young boy, he came up to his mom on a Sunday. He'd been running around playing with his cousins at a family gathering. And he came up to his mom and he said, "Mom, I think I know what it feels like when Pinocchio turned into a boy." And he had seen Pinocchio and saw the moment when Pinocchio became a boy. Having never really been able, he had been jumping on the trampoline and his mother was like watching this from a distance. And he ran up to her just sweating and happy and running around with his boys and just whispered to his mom, "Mom, I think this is what Pinocchio felt like when he became a boy." So that story made its way to my dad and my sister Nancy. And every Christmas we have a family gathering, and it's never quite on Christmas Eve, but it's typically 22nd, 23rd of this month of December. And Nancy had a small gift wrapped up for my dad. And my dad opened the gift and it was a small Pinocchio tree ornament. And she asked Dad to put that on the tree. And almost every year since then, and it's been, gosh, that's been almost 11 or 12 years, or excuse me, 9 or 10 years ago. It's pretty common for us at Christmas just to have a couple stories about what Asea is doing in the world. When these letters started coming in, and this is proof of it, by the way, this was put together 3 years ago. And I'll bet there's 5 binders that are at least 2 inches bigger than this one each in my dad's home library at home. But at the office, we had a small treasure chest, and we just started almost like when you open up mail and you have a place to put your mail. But in this case, if it was a story where something good had been done by Asea, whether it was economic or otherwise, we would put these stories in this treasure chest to remind us that maybe I can say it this way. How long would you be willing to work if a boy would say to you, "Thank you. I've always felt a little like Pinocchio before he became a boy, and now I feel like a boy." I think it was Cindy Buck who said this the first time I heard it, which is, on that day you get paid in goosebumps, not in dollars. And so we trade our time for a lot of things. We trade it for entertainment. We trade it for money, to be sure, when we've got a job that pays us. But if you can marry the trading of your time with those kinds of stories of impact, another one that comes to mind, Zoltan is our newest ambassador. He's Hungarian. He's a Hungarian immigrant in England who literally flat-footed in England is now an ambassador in this company. Just amazing story. And he was 10 years with a network marketing company prior to this and said, "Ty, I've never had anyone in 10 years call me and thank me for any of the products I've ever sold in network marketing. He says, I've been with Asea for 10 months. And every month I've had a tearful call for 10 straight months from someone saying, I just needed to reach back and say thank you. So, and the treasure chest now has become kind of folkloric in our company about the fact that we can't let ourselves forget that it's the stories of real people that fuel the fire of this company. And if we let the profit and loss statement, the economics, the enterprise value, and all of these terms that we all know from the financial realm become the heart of the company, we lose. And I will say that Dr. Maureen said this a little earlier. I truly subscribe to the notion that if we don't do our job well, the chance is that someone will suffer. And that may sound heavy to somebody, but I believe that. I believe when you move out of a motivation that's both from survival, I think you've heard me say this before, but I grew up working through a hierarchy of motivation. The first level, if you think of it as a pyramid, the first level of which was survive. You know, Jim and I were in a business where 1 out of 10 survived. So the earliest game was, I want to be here. I want to make it. And then the second tier was kind of, how would I say it, competitive in nature. You knew you were going to survive in it. Now Jim and I wanted to kind of outperform each other in a given year. And so you were motivated by the internal competition. Maybe that's recognition, for example, at an event, or even ranking up. Okay. Awesome motivation. Then it went to this notion of personal excellence. It became less relevant or relative to someone else. And it now was this game of, I got to beat my best yesterday. I've got to outperform myself. And as this hierarchy plays out from survival to kind of competition to then this personal excellence, and then there comes this time when none of that matters as much and it goes to a place of cause. And the cause motivation says, if I don't do my job well, someone's likely going to suffer. And I don't indict anyone for being anywhere across that hierarchy. But the fact stands that if you ask really, really good people at what they do, why they keep doing it, they no longer keep the same score the same way. The score dynamics change. If paying my son's college education or paying the light bill or making the rent or covering the cost of product might be the original initial motivation, but it'll change over time. And I think the treasure chest aims at reminding us that the highest form of motivation is, in fact, ironically, not intrinsic at all. It's not self-centered at all. It's the notion of, do you see brothers as fathers or brothers, right? And you say, okay, I got it. And I believe in the continuum of any great life philosophy, including religion. It's moving you away from self and moving you to compassion and awareness of others. That's the game. I mean, if you said, what is it in Buddhism? It's compassion. What is enlightenment in Buddhism, by the way? It's compassion. It's complete dislocation from self-interest until such that your only motivation is awareness and service to the needs of someone around you. Well, we all know that could be said of any number of faiths or philosophies for that matter. I just love the fact that we have a very, very special technology set. And we have this beautiful opportunity to engage in the service of others. And we can do it in a way that still blesses our own lives. And the more the more we dismiss the very real and natural temptation to make this about us, the more we can control that urge, the more we can remind ourselves that this is about others, I believe the greater success in possibility thinking you'll find. So the treasure chest is kind of an embodiment of all of those very beautiful principles, and the letters and the stories keep coming, much to our joy, and in some cases even to still surprise. I'm still surprised at how far reaching this can be.
Tyler, you're such a master storyteller. I think a good way to close this out might be to have you put a punctuation point here in just telling our audience. We've had a few hundred, on this from the beginning. What is Redox? What's the future of Redox? We've laid this great groundwork. It's like, why is this such a compelling thing into the future? I understand, Jim, we need to be off here, but maybe you could give us a quick summary statement and put maybe an exclamation point here, is to build all this into where are we going. I can't think of anybody better than making that statement.
Well, let's start with a couple concepts. What's gotten us here is not going to be necessarily what gets us there. What do I mean by that? If the Society for Free Radical Biology recently renamed themselves the Society for Redox Biology. Okay, let's unpack that for a minute. What's really going on there? Well, if Cherry 7-Up can put antioxidants on the can, what does that tell you? It tells you that a concept as difficult to understand as antioxidants can become so commonly understood and even heard and interpreted as good for you that Cherry 7-Up would put an otherwise reasonably technical biochemical term on a can of sugar water, carbonated albeit. So let's think about that for a minute. Antioxidants have carried the story or the day for a long time. Dr. Maureen, I'm hoping you're not drinking Cherry 7-Up there. I saw you looking at your can. But it's a fair question, right? How is that possible? How is it possible that something so not technically good for you can just put that on there? So let's look and say, all right, what's really happened has been the early understanding of redox biology and biochemistry was central and focused on the notion of antioxidants, the concept that an imbalance, and free radicals, of course, would be in excess of a balance. These free radicals will bang around and do us some damage. Well, what's now understood well is that it's reductants and oxidants, redox, operating in a homeostasis or a balanced set that's becoming more important in life than anything else. Can you hear my college-age son watching a football game in the background? I'm so sorry. Like, I'm about ready to go pull his ear off out there because I told him. But I think you have to understand that redox biology is going to continue to expand. Redox signaling is like one key on the piano of redox. In fact, redox is an orchestra. And we have a middle C on the piano in the orchestra of redox. That's how serious this is. And that's how big this is going to be. While I don't want to diminish the power of what we have in our Asea Redox supplement by any stretch, I don't want to continue to signal to you or to anyone else in this world that we have all things redox. We don't. We are positioned beautifully to now expand the story of redox. And a great deal of effort and money is being spent in our company to do just that, to find those unique pockets of opportunity in the story of how redox biochemistry and redox biology is in fact central to health. And so how would I say, where is redox going? Well, when you see in the last 5 years, several universities that have opened the Redox Center for Biology and Medicine. And it won't take long. Just drop university and Redox in and sit back. And once you get past the naysayers taking shots at us, who are getting more and more quiet, because I have people from 10 years ago, early on with this, who were saying, like, what is Redox anyway? They were ripping on us. I'm like, okay, I kind of like that. That makes me happy when people do that. Okay, hang on. This is going to happen right now. Hang on.
Oh, no.
Oh, somebody's in trouble.
I just looked at him. It was just a look. And he went, let me suggest to you guys this, that the concept of redox has a lot to do with energy. And energy, redox is in fact energy. The signaling nature of our product is energy. And I'm just giving you a little bit of foreshadowing of, and when I say energy, I don't mean stimulant. I mean energy. So where is it going? I would submit to you that as we become more enlightened about the nature, let me put it this way. What is an EKG? What is an EKG? An electrocardiogram. What are we saying when we say that? What are we saying when we say the brain and the heart are the most electronically energized organs? So much so that we can tap in and we can read those signals. We have to understand that the signals that are happening are transfers of energy. And if you asked me, where is the puck going on the ice, Lee, I would say to you, the world at large, and I don't mean just our world at Asea, I mean a much bigger world than even Asea can even purport to be, will continue to better understand the harnessing of the principles that underscore the energy that powers all life, which is redox. Redox is the energy that powers all life. Now, if you said, is it hard to see that we are introducing energy into a very common, simple, and elegant solution? And that's part of what I'm trying to tell you, is redox is the energy that powers all life. So question, if I turn the light switch on just over here, and I signal, well, what's happening? I'm allowing the transfer of energy to make its way. I haven't broken that circuitry, and I'm allowing energy to make its way and find expression in a light bulb. So what is a signal? Isn't a signal initiating something? Isn't a signal communicating something? Are those communications happening by virtue of energy? The answer is yes. So I'm not trying to be metaphysical with you, like talking about energy in these untouchable terms. I'm talking about it in ways, we already measure the energy of a heart. We already measure the electrocardiogram or the EKG, which then shows us a signal of the heart. And I think you're going to be surprised as we move forward in the world at large, and certainly here at Asea, to start to see that signaling is part of that story. But it's redox is bigger than a signaling alone. And we're working right now. Now, to be fair, let me just say it this way. A breakthrough technology such as Asea Redox supplement does not find its way quickly and easily to the desk of any company. It just doesn't. And we've had more errors and more mistakes and failures trying to continue to explore where we can take redox supplementation than you can imagine, than we ever announced from any stage. But I'm encouraged because what's happening now is the world is waking up to the power of redox, evidenced by what you're seeing at universities and other places, international conferences and such. And it's making it possible for us to make inroads at different universities with different players who, incidentally, are decades away from actually commercializing anything in this space. I mean, they're on the academic frontier and we're already in the product space. So I'm encouraged by that. Mark my words, you'll see other people in our industry begin to try to capture that framework of redox. You're going to see it, which to me will be nothing more than a punctuation mark on what we've been saying in its own way. People are you worried about that competitively? Not a bit. I think it's just nothing more than a stamp of like, oh yeah, you guys were right for 10 years and we're finally catching up. And frankly, in that particular case, they're going to be relabeling stuff that already existed that they didn't understand how it played. Watch for that. You'll see that. I'll be surprised if you don't see that. But I will submit to you guys that Redox is bigger than Asea. We should never go out saying, but I can say this. It's kind of like, who's first? Who's first? Who's raised this flag first and foremost? And where we're headed is a place of that kind of understanding. And in some ways, it's very, very easy for us to understand in different terms. For example, what's a 9-volt battery as opposed to a D-size battery, as opposed to a AAA battery? They're delivering energy differently. And that energy matches what? An end purpose in the form of a device. So if you thought of your body as a series of devices, is it reasonable to think that the energy needed to power cardiovascular health might have a different spectrum range than that of digestive health? And as that starts to get decoded, mark my words, it'll get very, very interesting. And I think it'll cross into therapeutic space, pharmaceutical space, and I think there will be a fair way for supplementation that we'll be able to play in very comfortably because of the 10-year head start we have. That might have been a little slippery, but I hope you can track where I'm going. Redox signaling is part of the overall redox story. And we happen to, with the great, call it luck, call it divine intervention, call it whatever you want, we happen to hit that early. But you're going to see where this goes over the coming years. And we will not be the only ones raising the flag, but I think we'll be best positioned to play the field.
That was a great answer. Thank you for being able to close us out on that. Jim, did you want to?
I've gone a little long, guys. Sorry.
It's awesome.
Awesome.
There you go.
I just want to say thank you. And I want to have you again, like I've told your brother and I've told you before, you've given us a gift. Because you guys said no, you've given me a chance for us to recover our finances. And I personally want to say thank you. I can't wait till we can see you again and give you a great big old hug.
Yeah.
But from the bottom of our hearts and all the people that we've been able to share this with all over the world, thank you. Not everybody would have done what you and your father have done. Very few would have done that. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, we appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Jim.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, guys.
We're so glad.
Blessings to everybody. Have a good night, okay?
Y'all have a great night. Great
Thank
weekend.
you.
Thanks
Thanks,
again.
everyone.
See you next week.